and I don't know if this is representative of everybody, but from my experience and all of the black male educators I've come in contact with, we inspire academic engagement. We do. The students want to learn from us. Even the ones who aren't in our tutelage directly, they want to be a part of what we're given.
Hey, family, welcome to another episode of the Black Man's Roundtable. I am your host, Rodney Butler, and today we have two very special guests on. It is one of my favorite episodes or series that I do. As you guys know, the faithful followers of the Black Man's Roundtable, you know I do quite a few series, about 5 or 6 different series, and my education series is one of my favorite series that I do, because I am a former educator myself, and just it is the bedrock. Education is the bedrock of everything about our community when we're talking about our young people, our children. And so it's always a pleasure to do the education series of the Black Man's Roundtable. Today I have two guests on who are not strangers to this, to the Black Man's Roundtable. They both have been on before. One was on last year, and the other one was on maybe 2 years ago or something like that. But they are very familiar with the Black Man's Roundtable. And today, of course, during our education series, we have on Dr. Cemond Robinzine. He is an area superintendent here in the local Atlanta area. He has a doctorate degree in educational leadership, and we also have Dr. Stephen Littles, who has an earned PhD in curriculum and instruction, and he is a middle school administrator here in the local Atlanta area. I am ecstatic to have these two gentlemen on. We hope to have some great topics we want to discuss tonight. That's why I didn't do a very long introduction of them, because each one of the introductions take up like an entire page. So I'm not going to do that, because there's half the show gone. So, but with that being said, I look very forward to getting to as many topics as we possibly can tonight, because right now education is very, 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 it's a very hot topic in our community, and I think most of the followers of the Black Man's Roundtable know why. But anyway, without further ado, Dr. Robinzine and Dr. Littles, how you doing today, brothers?
Doing great this evening. How are you, Rod? Glad to be here.
Doing great, man.
Doing all right, sir. Doing all right. Thanks.
Good. Absolutely. Glad to have you, Stephen. All right, so look, gentlemen, like I said, we're going to jump right into this. We have about 7 or 8 topics. It's going to be tough to get them all in, but I'm going to do my level best to get them all in. So we're going to jump right into this. And the very first topic I want to talk about is the impact of the Department of Education changes on local schools. Now, we know that we know that there are many changes to come. Some have already taken place a little bit. So some of it may be speculation, but hey, we want to know your thoughts on the impact of the Department of Education changes on local schools. And Dr. Robinzine, I think this will be a good one to start with you.
Yes, thank you, Rod. So I think the impact right now, I like the word that you just said. A lot of it is speculative, but like we heard with the new what's going on with our Department of Education, like I think just last week, 50% of the employees were laid off. So really right now, we just wonder how they impact some of our Title I programs and officials like IDEA possibly, which really governs our students with disabilities. We don't know if that'll be impacted or the funding impact, because what people don't realize, a small portion of the funding for schools comes from the federal government. And I think I've seen on the news as well, just about our lunch programs, which are funded through Title I, those Title I funding as well. So we just don't know right now. So, and I tell my leaders all the time, we don't know what the landscape in the fall will look like, but we do know any funding cuts, big or small, are significant on schools.
Appreciate you on that. Yes, sir. And you're absolutely right. Before I respond to that, so Stephen, you want to jump in with anything?
Yeah, I would like to look at it from more of a local level, being in the building.
Yeah. Hmm.
Recently, the math standards were changed, and that was a big shift last year when it occurred initially.
Okay.
Um, and it was hard at first, but I honestly think that it put our teachers in positions to be better math educators. But
Mm.
it was a big iceberg that came through when it happened, and morale was really low at first, right? Because you know when you start getting flowing with what you're doing it well, and
Hmm.
things change. What do you do? But you know, just speaking from just being in the building level, you know, we got our professional development together and got our teachers together, and they were able to get on board with it.
Right, right, right. Yeah, and like we said, since a lot of it is speculative, but I just know that a lot of the listeners, would want to hear about Department of Education stuff and what's going to happen and how that's going to trickle down to our local schools. But and that's why I wanted to start with that, because I know that's a question or a concern that a lot of parents have. But we just want you to know that right now, much of it is speculation right now, but it is a. I wanted to bring up that topic so that you know that here at the round table, that myself and these educators, these administrative educators that you see before you, we are on top of this. And so, yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about it now, but when we have another one of these towards the end of the year, the end of the school year, because as you guys know, the loyal followers, we had one earlier in the year, with Dr. Robinzine and Chris, another administrator on, Chris Taylor. We'd had him on, and we promised that we would come back and do more of a kind of a progress report. That's kind of what this is. And my goal is to make sure that I get these educators on, towards the end of the year, the school year again, so we can kind of have an end of year report. And we hope that we have more information on, what's happening at the Department of Education level, so we can really hone down. So although we don't have a bunch to say on that topic right now, but we just want you to know that we're on top of it, because we know that you guys are concerned with what's happening at the DOE, even if there be, even if there isn't a DOE, at the end of this school year. So with that, gentlemen, I want to jump right into the next topic, and feel free to jump in, where you feel you can jump in at.
Can I jump in right now? We having a
Yes.
conversation, right?
Yes,
You know
yes,
how I
sir.
do.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what I'm finding out is I think the biggest misconception is that everybody knows what the Department of Education is. So if you had
Good
to
point.
give
Good
like
point.
just where the goats can get it, just a rudimentary explanation of what it is, how would you say it if you had to explain it to somebody on just a base level?
Oh, you want me to jump in and
Yeah,
take
yeah.
that?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Simon. Yeah. Join the
So the,
conversation.
the Department of Ed was founded basically, I think, not the exact date, but I know in the 60s. Really, it comes in. So a lot of our federal programs are housed there, which one everybody's probably pretty familiar with. I know Rod has spoken as a special educator. IDEA is housed there. A lot of those Title IX, which governs like equity and programs and things like that, also comes in our Title I funding, which really helps to support and offset. Even to back up a little bit, Title One helps to close the achievement gap, and that's one of the big things about closing the achievement gap. And I guess in its simplest forms, I always say politics are local. Probably the Title One piece would be most impactful, because that's where our high need schools really receive funding. So the Department of Ed, which is housed in Washington, goes ahead and really oversees some of these programs and allocates funding to schools to help support our high need schools. And really the function is to close the achievement gap and bring equity among schools. And so if funding is cut, and we've heard some of that, so we can't say per se that school lunches will be cut, but that money to support that programs comes from the federal programs as well. So, and then we're talking about funding. We fund schools. It's a small portion, like I said earlier. Most of our funding comes from local tax revenue, but the federal government does send funding in the schools. So I hope that kind of clarifies.
Yes, sir. And to add to
Okay.
that, I don't know if the numbers have changed, but my understanding was the federal government's contribution to the education budget is about 5%. It's really not even that much.
Correct.
5 and 7%.
Yep.
Right. And like you said, the goal for the DOE was to, or the primary purpose for the DOE was to bring equity.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about it, before the 1950s, before the 1960s, let's put it that way, there really wasn't much equity in schools. And so we know that schools need every single ounce, every single penny that they can get. And like Stephen said, it's not that it was some huge, it's like a huge funding,
Right.
per se, but it's a very important piece of the funding, and so yeah. So absolutely, but Stephen, I do appreciate you. Before we had moved on, I do appreciate you, saying that, hey, we just assume that people know what the DOE is for, and I'm glad you brought that back home and put it where the goats can get it, because a lot of people, a lot of time we take for granted that people just know,
Right.
what these departments are, what these, and so I definitely appreciate that.
Yes,
Definitely
sir.
appreciate it. Here's something a topic that's going to be, almost, it's going to be a little bit of personal and professional kind of mixed in. And it is this topic is the importance of black male educators in the classroom. Gentlemen, I know you probably got a whole lot to say on that one, but just hit your main stuff on the importance of black males in the classroom.
Man. Can I start? You mind?
Sure.
Yes, sir. Just jump
Um,
in.
The first ones that come to mind are representation and role modeling, right?
Yep.
And then mentorship and guidance. I think people kind of get them all jumbled up, but they're different, right?
Different.
Representation and modeling, that's just being present, right? Just being there. And people will say, oh, I'm glad you're here because of how you look. I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to be present, right? But then you have mentoring and guidance. Now, once you're present, what do? Right? What are your actions? What are you doing to impact those around you who look like you, right? And I think a lot of times with us, as we've experienced, people, when they come in contact with us, they blend all four of those together and they think we're doing that. But we're not. Some of us are just representing and role modeling, and some of us are actually getting in the dirt of it, mentoring and guiding.
Great. I like the way you broke all four of those down. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Cemond.
I think that's, first of all, a great topic. I think I think back to, I started off as a special education teacher myself, Rod. So just knowing, it kind of drove me in based on the overrepresentation of black males in special ed. So I feel like I could make a difference. So I think this, having that individual in the classroom, the kids can see a good, like Stephen was saying, a good role model daily. Because you have kids for 180 days. So the impact is tremendous, especially when brothers are in there. Because we all know teaching is more than just going to the chalkboard and teaching standards. It's about mentoring and guiding kids, and just, but the impact in the classroom for a child to see a positive role model who may not have the individual in the home on a daily basis can be life changing for a student. So I think the impact is profound. It's so very difficult to find a lot of black male teachers because, as a male, a lot of times you got to be the breadwinner, and then just coming into a profession sometimes that doesn't embrace black males. To be honest, I think that might be a whole nother conversation, because sometimes it's sometimes our voice and the way we teach and lead isn't in the majority. So I think that to bring that presence not only into the classroom but into a faculty or staff is tremendous. So you find a good, strong black male who's committed to teaching, I think the impact among students is tremendous. It goes beyond just the classroom.
Absolutely. Very, very well put. Very well put.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, the importance of, when I look at the importance of the black male in the classroom, it's the same. I don't see it much different as the importance of black men in every single room in
Right.
America. And so, But yes, this bring on a unique situation because kind of like Steven said, we are doing so much more. Well, both of you said that we are doing so much more than teaching, you know, and we're kind of used to it. We're kind of used to juggling, you know, so many different balls, and so a lot of times with our counterpart with white male teachers, they are expected. And they practice for the most part. Of course, we can't, you know, label everybody. They get in there, they do their job, they teach, they leave. You know, and again, I'm not painting them with a broad brush, but that's what's expected of them. Stephen, I think you wanted to.
Yeah, you know, my brain is going a mile a minute over here. But you know, what I thought about was a can of concentrated orange juice. But you have to take it and add water to it, it expands. But then you have the regular jug of orange juice. We're that concentrated orange juice, right? We have to operate under such constructs that people can't even begin to imagine. They can't even begin to imagine. I'm the administrator at my school. This is my 4th year. Some people still don't know what I do, right? Some people call me the janitor. Some people call me I teach 3rd grade. I just let it go because, you know, I'm here to do what I need to do. And it doesn't matter what people think I do. It's about what my impact is going to be. But I make sure that whatever is concentrated with my experience, when it comes out, oh man, you're going to get it all. Right? You're going to get every single bit of it. And when I'm done, I'm not wasting it. I'm going to put it right back in my container and hold it until it's time to use again. It seems like everybody else has the freedom to be who they are, how they want to be at all times. They can say what they want, right? I don't know if you guys have been in this situation, but I remember when I was student teaching. And I'm sorry I'm talking too much.
No, this is a conversation.
I had my mentor teacher come and explain to me how I had to keep the door open when I was with a female student. Right? Sorry, my motion sensor went off. I think it'll come back on. But either way, I couldn't believe that I was having that conversation when we're sitting all the way across the room. We weren't even near each other. And I had my mentor teacher telling me I couldn't keep the door shut when I saw all these other teachers doing it all the time. Right. And this is how, like, when I first started teaching, that fear was put in me as a black male educator, that I knew I couldn't do what everybody else could do. But that concentrated effect, when it comes out, it's going to be meaningful and it's going to be impactful.
Absolutely.
Rod, can I just jump in? I know I might be compounding on and going off the actual topic, but I want to add to, just like when Chris was on here, after that we connected. Right. So where I'm going with it is beyond teaching, when brothers like Steve and Chris and myself get out the classroom, not only teaching kids, we need to reach back and mentor young teachers.
Yes.
And I work on a district level, and I love the conversation to speak the truth here, because it's really a campaign for brothers. When we get to a place, we ought not forget to take 2 or 3 with us.
Right.
You know, because a lot of times I've seen it, we get into a place and I don't know why we feel insecure and not to a place to embrace each other or to reach out to simplify the path or the journey for another brother. If you had it, why would you want to take this tough journey as well? Why not take time and share what you know and that wisdom to help propel them even further than where you've landed?
Absolutely. And then, you know, as black male educators, whether you're in the classroom, whether you are, you know, in the administrative level in the building, or whether you are at the district level or whatever, right? We are usually not only, a double minority, which is something that a lot of black men don't get to experience, but we are a deep double minority.
Right.
I mean, obviously deep double minority. And so we have to, to juggle so many different things. And that's why, people say, well, well, why don't you have, when you're doing your education series, why do you concentrate on black men when you do these series? I would challenge anybody. You go into any, building, any K-12 educational building, whether it is at the school level, whether it is at, if there's a building that have a district level, or whatever the level is, you will see why I concentrate on black men. I know we live in Metro Atlanta, right? And sometimes we can get a false sense of a direction or whatever, that that there are a lot of black educators in K-12 education, and it's just not the case. We are in Atlanta, so everything looks a little bit Metro Atlanta, so everything look a little skewed and everything look a little bit different. But I think even for black women, I think it's only something like 4% or something like that. Right. As far as being in K-12 education, and last count that I knew of, black men was something like 1% or less than 1% or that low. But we can get a little confused here in Metro Atlanta. And that kind of thing. Dr. Littles, you want to close it out?
Yes, sir. There's one more thing I want to add.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know if this is representative of everybody, but from my experience, and all of the black male educators I've come in contact with, we inspire academic engagement.
Okay.
We do. The students want to learn from us. Even the ones who aren't in our tutelage directly, they want to be a part of what we're given, right? And that's not trying to be arrogant about it. It's just the truth.
Just the truth. It's just the truth. And well, I thought we was going to close it out, but you kind of opened a can. You kind of opened a can of worms for me. So look, Dr. Robinzine, I got to give you an opportunity as well if you want to, before we move on. But Stephen, it's something that we do. I remember everybody being impressed, to take it from the classroom, take it away from the classroom. I just remember everybody being impressed. When I say everybody, I'm talking about the country being impressed, back in 2007, 2008, when this skinny little man with the funny middle name, Barack Hussein Obama, came on the platform, and they talked so much about, oh my God, he's just so eloquent. He's this transformational speaker and all this kind of stuff. And I think that it's safe to say that the three of us, we looked at people who are saying this, usually people who probably don't share the same hue that we have in our skin, that's saying how great of a speaker, how transformational he was, and all this stuff. We like, man, we got uncles in our family who talk like that every family reunion. You know what I'm saying? That it's not even anything. Right. So what I say that to say is that, just to share, and I usually don't do this, but I will share real quick, since Stephen, you kind of brought it up, is that how accepting we are to young people. I think it's just a natural thing. I think it is built into our DNA. I had two students, two different schools. Both students had something in common, and that is they were terrorizing the entire building since they were in kindergarten. That was both of them. The first student I'm talking about, just tearing up people's bulletin board, just going around the school and just doing all kinds of they were literally known throughout the entire building for being destructive and having destructive behaviors. And so, the first student that I'm talking about, again, kindergarten, I got that student in the third grade. That's when I got the student in the third grade. Hadn't been doing all that stuff since kindergarten. And so by Thanksgiving, we know how quickly that comes when the school year started. By Thanksgiving, there was none of that. It was completely gone. And I'll fast forward a few years later, another student, and that was a black male. Okay, that was a black male, the first student. His other student was a white female. Again, kindergarten, terrorizing the entire building the same way since kindergarten. I got this student in the second grade. And by Thanksgiving, all that has stopped. So so Stephen, you are absolutely right. It doesn't matter the child. It doesn't matter the gender or the race or anything. I am on board with you 100%. People mouths were dropped to the floor, especially with the second student, because it was a white female, and they just could not believe it. And they asked me, what did I do? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just myself. I can't explain. There's no textbook. There's no, here's what I know. That old saying of children don't care what you know until they know you care.
Mm-hmm.
That holds true. And you also you gotta love those kids. But anyway, Dr. Robinzine, I want to give you an opportunity, to chime in on that, because Stephen opened it up, brother.
Oh no, I'm gonna save mine to a little bit later. Y'all go ahead. I think y'all did a great job. I'm saving for the
great,
next.
great.
Okay.
All right. Well, look, we're gonna move right on to the next topic, and that is something that that I can't speak on too much, but I know you two guys can from your perch, the perch that where you sit as administrators, and that is teacher morale. Let's talk about it. Teacher morale.
Well, I guess I could jump on in here, Rod. I guess
sir.
I was saving it for here. Teacher morale. That is probably one of the hottest topics out right now, and I think just really morale is really. I think I'll wrap it up and say challenging right now. I think teachers are being faced. Well, first of all, our kids are receiving instruction from a workforce probably foreign to us. A lot of teachers that we have now coming in from non-traditional or places, because all of the older teachers are flushing on out, probably due to teacher morale, due to the workload. I think sometimes the demands of high-stake testing and MTSS and behavior things, and then let's just say about pay, depending upon which county you're in. I'm just going to put this out there because I think the public needs to know. In my 28-year career, I haven't ever heard as many teachers being homeless as we have right now. So we have teachers Ubering. We have teachers having to be supported by, when I say supported, being the principal having to reach out for wraparound. So that is really impacting the morale of our teachers, and being able to get qualified teachers in front of students is a challenge. I believe when people come in from a second job or not from a non-traditional teacher prep program, it's really hard to pick up teachers, because unbeknownst to people, teaching is tough. You get into a classroom right now, understanding standards, going to collaborative planning, bus duty, breakfast duty, but really engaging students. So all of these things are really contributing to low teacher morale, as far as I've seen it, in my opinion.
The Littles?
Man, he got that one. Speaking from my experience as a building leader, morale that's the correct word, and challenging, right? I think the first word we want to pick is low, but that's not true, because you see the ebbs and flows of it. For me, it's more like trial and error, right? When I stepped into my administrator role, I had been a teacher for so long, I stepped in as an administrator thinking I had it all figured out. But once I got put on the other side, it didn't matter where I came from. I had to figure out how to let people see past what I was as a title and see that I respected them as people. But between the pay, the behaviors, another thing is social media. And I don't think that the teachers really get enough attention paid to their social emotional learning in this space as well. Because as the students are being transformed by what it is they're digesting, these adults are doing the same thing. And the students haven't really figured out how to do it. The adults haven't figured out how to make the students do it. And it's this big thing where you're saying, like, we're foreign to each other, right? I look at myself and where I am. I remember using a typewriter. My youngest teacher doesn't even know what a typewriter is, right? So there's a big unspoken gap there. And as you talk about morale, I might not even be able to get on the same level with a person who's so far technologically advanced than I am, to try to figure out what is it that makes you work, what is it that makes you tick. If I'm coming from the old school, hey, I'm going to make sure that I teach the old school way. They don't even have textbooks anymore. Everything's on a laptop. Things are just different, right? So unless we can close that gap to start to really understand where we find ourselves, that morale piece is always going to be challenging for us.
Absolutely. And, and Cemond, like you talked about, you have educators, you have teachers living in their cars or whatever, or having to do, all other kinds of other, Uber and different things, ride share. Right. And one of the things that I warn educators that I knew prior to not prior to, but during COVID was, the love that was given to teachers,
right?
The love
right.
that was given to educators. I explained to them that, look, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer or whatever, but I would warn them, don't buy off into that, what do they used to call them? Not significant workers, or whatever the label they used to call the important workers or whatever, like nurses, and teachers. Essential workers and all of that stuff. And I'm like, look, and you guys are and Cemond, you know that I came from a background of education and the military, all right?
Yes.
And knowing that both of those these professions that are supposed to be so essential and so important or whatever, right, are the jobs where people are can qualify for food stamps, at the lower end of the spectrum of those jobs, and it just shouldn't be. I don't care if somebody's in their first week of teaching or if their first week in the uniform of America. They should never have they should never qualify. Their pay should never qualify them for food stamps. Period. Mm-hmm. And so you're absolutely right. So, but it just reminds me of, me just kind of warning, because being a military person, I've seen that 100,000 times where, this patriotism, air quotes, and all that stuff. And I would warn the educators, back during COVID, that essential worker, I said, okay, all right, but it just reminds me of that. Sad, man. It's really sad.
Yeah, it is.
Really sad. Really sad. Yep. So, yeah. So we're gonna leave it with that. Teacher morale right now is challenging, to say the least. Here's one I know you guys can talk about. I don't know if you want to talk about it personally yourself, but hey, it's a Black Man's Roundtable. I just ask you to be real, and that is administrative burnout. Gentlemen, let's talk about it. Let's talk about administrative burnout.
You want to start, Steven?
Oh man, sure. I'm going to look at one aspect of my burnout that I didn't expect. I didn't anticipate this. I'm an introvert. So to be in the classroom, I only really had to worry about that collection of students that was with me and their parents. And I didn't have to, go too far out of my comfort zone to do my job. But being an administrator, it was totally different. And I had to become an introvert with extrovert tendencies, right?
Right.
I did not anticipate the emotional, I had to breathe on that one. Just the emotional toll it would take on me, because I've taken so many people's emotions on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And I never know what's coming my way. It's different if you wore a shirt that said, this is my emotion, and I could try to avoid it if I could. But I don't know what you're about to throw at me, but I have to help you. So I absorb so many different emotions in a day that I'm literally exhausted by the end. And then have to wake up the next day and do it all over again with a whole different set of people, right? Yep. I really have to work on that skill of emotion juggling to make sure that I don't let it affect me in a way that I can't recover from. So I know that particular part leads to my burnout, where I need a weekend isn't enough time to recover. from all of the emotions I'm bombarded with. And then I have to go home and deal with whatever I have to deal with at home.
Exactly.
Right? But it's not a complaint. You're right. I'm glad to serve, but that aspect of it is difficult for me.
Yeah, this is right in my wheelhouse because I deal probably more with the leaders. It's real administrative burnout. I think just thinking versus like when we go to hire, I think when I became an administrator in '07, the pool may have been packed. Everybody wanted to be an administrator. You know, we might find 100-something applicants, a plus for one job, versus now you may go in for principal positions and you may get 30-some at times. You know, but I'll say this too, and I don't want to deviate too much. I've served as an assistant principal, assistant superintendent. I think right now one of the toughest jobs out here, right, is to be a school principal. Specifically, a high school principal is a CEO of a business, and you're asking somebody to really really work miracles at times. And I think you spoke like COVID gave us an opportunity to change the landscape, but I think we rolled back so quickly to back the demands of state testing. You put a combination of state testing and lack of resources for underserved schools, you get a lot of burnout. And I think too, people need to understand a lot of times they come to the principal with the problems, but the principal needs the connection from the community to support the kids they're sending to them. And so I was talking to a young leader today, and phenomenal leader. I tell her, like, we want to make analogies to sports. She's like a first round pick. She one of those Kobe's. And I told her today, don't ever lose your confidence because you got to give that comes from above. But you got to go the extra mile, like in my job, not only worrying about testing, but see, people don't realize, and she talked to me a little bit, like, I'm really glad I'm under you all, with you all's team, because to your point, when you want to give kids more and you're caught in the system sometimes it gives you less, it gets you become really discouraged. And I think the burnout is from wanting to do more for kids with less. So I think that's what's really happening, and myself included personally. I serve 12 schools daily, and I tell them, it's just like being a dad. The kids hungry, but dad real hungry. You know what I'm saying? I want to make sure y'all eat, but I can't show it all the time. I'm in here too, battling for what you need. So it's an uphill climb a lot of times, and I think the demands. We talk about teacher demands, but all roads. I hate to say, and Stephen, all roads lead back to that principal office.
Yep,
Okay.
it's called
Yes,
principal for a reason.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah, and that burnout is real. And not only that, if you have looked at it, the Black Man's Roundtable, how many black superintendents are down right now? Gwinnett, gone. Rockdale County, gone. Yep. Because to balance that, because education has evolved, our leaders have to balance a school board, then come back and provide for schools. So just adding that in there too. The demands on our leaders are great.
Yep. Stephen?
Yeah.
Stephen got so much to say.
I wonder, like, as I think about your role.
Yeah.
And I sat here and said what I had to say, and then you layered it. And I was just wondering what's above your layer. If we had one more person on this call who had a position higher than you, who looked like us, what would he have added to that?
Right.
And it just, I don't want to use the word impossible, because if I said impossible, I don't mean it in a negative sense.
No, I understand.
Right.
Because it can still be done, because we're doing it, right? But I think conversations like this are important. Like, I don't get to have this conversation. I come to work and I deal with people's problems. I go home, I go to sleep, I come back, I'm doing the same thing, but I don't get a chance to do this right here and listen to it above me, right? So listening to you, that right there helped me out, because I was like, oh man, I never considered the fact that somebody is going through something a little bit more difficult than what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. That's why I kind of circle back at the beginning. We were talking about helping each other. It's so imperative. I tell anybody the value of mentorship, and the value, like every leader's not the same, man. I just always feel like I used the young lady I was talking about who's a young shining star. And I think it's a great example because they wanted her to lose her shine. I'm like, because you got to keep pushing, but you got to have somebody who's going to connect and talk to you on a personal level. So I know y'all don't play sports. Sometimes, man, about the X's and O's, it's like, man, stay in the game. You got what it takes. Just keep pushing. Well, so you just sometimes need that. But to your point, yeah, it's that administrative burnout. I'm glad you put that on there because we hear about the teacher burnout, but a lot of people are not looking at the administrative burnout. And not to belabor a point, but if our leaders, like our APs, aren't getting enough time in the incubator, and you throw them off into the principal seat, that principal seat is a lot. That principal seat, no, it's different. And so you're leading. I tell my leaders every day, you're leading in times I have not led in. And I think these are some of the most difficult times you've ever had to lead in. So that piece there, we need more. Because like I said, if our older principals retire and our AP's been in there 2 years, now you can get some phenomenal APs in there 2 years, but sometimes it just depends on the exposure your principal gives you. So now you don't rush got the driver's seat that they gave you a Lamborghini and you only been driving about 6 months. That thing got some horsepower.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with him totally. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, since you, Cemond, since you brought up the sports analogy, so and to kind of, kind of come back around to what Stephen talked about is about a person being above you, and in taking those two things that you two guys talked about, a person above you from Stephen, and then the sports analogy from you, Cemond, is that as you guys were talking about that, I thought about one of the things that I'm going to do, that I plan to do with this education series, is to have that classroom teacher on, and also a school board member, but also a superintendent. And so we, as you know, Stephen, is that we sit here in Douglas County with a black male superintendent of Douglas County Schools, Trent North. And, and the sports analogy, Cemond, is that I'm thinking about is that when you give, a black guy a chance to be quarterback, they usually go to the Super Bowl. Okay.
Right.
So, and that's why you don't want to give it to him in the first place, because you know he's going to the Super Bowl. And so I say that to say that opportunity. So you take, Trent North, black man, who is the superintendent of Douglas County Schools, and he is the current state superintendent of the year for the state of Georgia.
Oh, all right.
And yes, he came in. He was in the Final Four for the nation.
Wow.
So if you want to talk, he was in the Final Four. It came down to 4. I don't know, but he didn't get teacher of the year for the country. I'm sorry, not teacher, but superintendent of the year for the nation. But he did. He was the Final Four. So awesome. So excellence, and again, using that sports analogy, you even with all of the different I don't know, just the stressors of being a black man in education. We talked about the percentage of being 1% or less. He's just, I think, an example of that. But yes, but Stephen, to answer your question as well, is that that's one of the goals, is to get is to get Trent or one of the others on, because ain't that many to choose from to come on, and we will have that aspect. That question that you had is that I wonder what he would say, above Dr. Robinzine. So great topic on that one. The next one is handling discipline, and I know we all have stuff to say about this one as well, but handling discipline without pushing students into the school to prison pipeline. Now, I tell people all the time, right? They I don't know if they still use this model or not, but I know that they used to base how many prisons they build based on testing or based on reading. And what that reading is that so in the 3rd grade, you guys know as well as I know, being educators, that in the 3rd grade, that is where you're supposed to transition from learning to read to reading to learn. Right. And if you're not someone in the 3rd grade who is reading to learn, they consider that a prison bed. And that is how they know, especially if you're a male, black or white. But that is how they know. That is what a lot of that was based on past. I don't know if they still use that exact, and I know there's other things that they use. But so when we talk about the school to prison pipeline and the handling of discipline, but again, the topic is handling discipline without pushing students into the school to prison pipeline, because you know that a lot of people look to us. The people that look like us, black men in the building, they look to us for a lot of the disciplinary situations that happens in the building, even if we're not an administrator. So, guys, jump in there.
Can I start with that one?
Yes, sir.
And this is something I struggle with a little, because you're right. We are looked at as we have to be the disciplinarian, the hard hand, and we always talk about the treatment that we get from the police, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever that is, right? But if we're in schools and we're trying to just punish kids, how are we different than what they're getting out there by the people that they're claiming are victimizing us, right? And so when we're in schools, I don't think you try to punish it out of a kid by writing them up all the time, trying to suspend them all the time. I think it's imperative that we build the capacity in young people to just be responsible neighbors and citizens, right? So how do you take somebody and truly help them learn from whatever mistake they made? They're children. They're growing. They're learning, right? So how do you help them take a situation that they've gotten into that was negative and restore it? And then get a chance to try to do it all over again and practice being a responsible citizen. Because if all you're doing is punishing me and trying to suspend me, why do I want to get better? And we're living in a different time, like you said, times that we've never seen before. These children respond differently. So we can't continue to discipline the same way. So with me, when I talk about discipline with a student, I let them know, what does discipline mean? It means self-control. It doesn't mean I have to punish you.
Right.
But I'm going to teach you how to control yourself so that you can contribute to the community you're a part of. Because you're going to leave me one day and go somewhere else. You're going to be somebody's father one day. You're going to be somebody's husband one day. And I would like to know that I did my part here in school to help you build those blocks, no matter how many mistakes you made, so that on the other side, you can build up somebody else to make the community even stronger. Somebody did it for me. I'm pretty sure somebody did it for y'all too. So we owe it to the next generation to continue doing that, no matter how hard it is. So I'm all about teaching kids how to use restorative practices so that we can avoid that whole pipeline.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the restorative practice piece is huge, and I think really, I know it may sound kind of cliche, but we really kill them on that early elementary level. And I think if we really push literacy, I know that may sound cliche and too broad, but I think if we can catch them early and really put stress literacy, get them reading, like you said, to kind of combat that third grade test. It's a task, but I think a lot of times, when somebody's acting out, there's a root cause. And a lot of times the students that are getting in trouble have had difficulty or haven't found much success in learning. So I think starting there, and to Stephen's point, the restorative practices, when we start getting on that secondary level, it's a whole different, I think, just really out of care, support, and some may look at it a little different because I know we stress academics, but maybe having opportunities for kids to get involved in different things. Athletics save lives, and drama and all of those, whatever, having avenues for students to get involved. And, but I know it's still tough because, like you said, we're battling things like social media and all of those things. So really trying to foster that creative environment to gain students' interest so they want to come to school. But I'm very aware that there are still challenging students who sometimes, but I think just discipline with care and not just really serving them with time after time, and really trying to win that community too, getting parents involved when you can, because I know that's a challenge as well. I'm not going to sit up here and say that it's just that easy, but just exhausting all your resources.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes a village, you know.
It does.
I think that everybody in that school, everybody in
Mm-hmm.
that building is important. I learned recently, I did not know this, that in Japan, right, they don't have custodians, period. And I was like, wow, you are expected to clean up behind yourself.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, those schools are immaculate as far as, you know, the cleanliness of them. And so, but I just think about that when I think about it's the expectations. It like I said, it takes
Right.
a village,
Right.
but it's also the expectations
Mm-hmm.
that the adults in the building, from the bus driver to the custodian to everybody, the expectations that you know that you put on that student. Really, when we're talking about the school to prison pipeline, yes, it is highly likely that if you go to any prison, that the people in there are not they are not learning, they are not reading to learn, they are learning to read. But also
Mm.
just that collective of being together. I mean, I'm sorry, just that collective of everybody in the building having that it takes a village attitude, gentlemen. I think excuse me, I think it's very important to keeping our children from feeding into that pipeline.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard something a long time ago, and it said it takes a village to raise a child, but sick villages raise sick children.
That's
Wow.
right. That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. We can move to the next topic, which is the need for more black male teachers in leadership role. Yeah, we hit on it, and I knew that we were going to hit on it before I put it as this topic, but I wanted to be very specific. I want to be very specific. I want for you two gentlemen to be very specific in the need for more black teachers in leadership, in actual leadership roles.
Yeah, I think specificity that you're speaking of, I think definitely I might be biased on the elementary. I don't know if Stevens Elementary too. Well, that's where I served. Well, I served elementary as an administrator. I taught all three levels being a special educator, but I think specifically there, the need, it kind of connects to our previous question about just having that good role model. And I think having that administrator, the black male there helps to model for students, you know, AP, principal, or even district, whatever it is. But I think that need to pour back into specifically like elementary school is really important. And then even moving on, like you said, to a district level or our secondary leaders, I feel like our secondary leaders, we need good black male administrators on the secondary level our secondary students still need role models. They do, and who understand them and know that learning goes beyond the classroom walls. And I think sometimes when you can empathize with that student, you understand, especially you can talk to somebody that looks like you. So I think that's really important on those different levels and being able for them. And I continue to say for those individuals who do, it's up to us to kind of reach back and pull them in. You know, so we should always be on a talent search, specifically looking for young talent. And it doesn't even have to be an interview. It could be just encouraging words. Say, hey, I see something in you. Have you ever thought about that? To help fill those gaps or those voids that we have right now.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that takes me back to what we started off with, representation versus mentorship.
Right.
And these leadership roles, as I'm seeing now, I have a larger number of people in my purview, right?
Right.
So the representation is important because they got to see me there first. So they see me. All of you see me, I'm visible, right?
Right.
Then I can make sure that I permeate certain spaces to get the mentorship in.
Right.
Not only do you see me, but I'm active in certain spots, right? So I think that's important for us to be in these leadership roles because we get a chance to do that. We get a chance to actively do both parts.
Right.
Not only am I here, but I'm present, and I'm going to make sure that I get everybody. Now, those who only see me, that may be good enough because they're getting something at home that's going to supplement that. So when it's their turn to be where I am, oh man, it's their turn to do what they got to do. But for those who need a little bit of guidance and they can see me, who might not get it somewhere else, I can give them what they need so that when they get here as well, right? Because they're all going to be here together. The ones who only saw me and the ones who got mentored by me, they're going to be together. And they're still going to get it anyway. And they're going to get a chance to do it all over again. But that's why we got to be there.
Yep.
They need to see us, and we got to be the ones that guide them to that next point.
And I think another point in that whole conversation about black men in leadership role in education is that, like you guys, well, what they do, they have no problem putting black men into leadership roles, where, the predominant, the predominant students are black that look like them. But I think one aspect that's not talked about a lot is knocking down stereotypes, right? So, if you got a black man and he's in a school system or a building that is predominantly white, right? I talked about a little bit earlier. You give him the opportunity, he's going to the Super Bowl. You give him, you put him in there, he's going to the Super Bowl, unless you try to change the goalposts, right? Unless you try to start changing all the rules and you got the referees against him and everything else, you're going to have to work very hard to prevent him, to keep him out of that Super Bowl. But to me, having, Dr. Littles, having Dr. Robinzine, okay, in a building or in a district that is predominantly white, for instance, a lot of stereotypes are knocked down right away about black men. And that young student that grows up to be a cop, a white police officer, he remembers Littles. He remembers Robinson. You see what I'm saying? So I think that it is important to elevate and not on some DEI stuff, we're not going to get into that or whatever. We're not going to, but at the end of the day, we're talking about, it's been shown time and time again, provide the opportunity and watch what happens. So yeah, I think that the one of the aspects is knocking down stereotypes, by having black men, in these leadership roles in education.
Rodney, the last time I was on your podcast, man, you always, these conversations always get me going, and you always get me to a point where I'm like extra sensitive. So I'm going to share something I never really shared publicly, right? I don't know how this is going to be taken, but
you're the Black Man's Roundtable, Doc. You are safe, Doc. You've been on here before. You are safe.
I'm safe? Okay. Safe. So here we go. I've always taught or worked in majority black schools. Always. I go where I'm needed, not where I want to go, right? Mm-hmm. So my sore spot after all this time has always been who the minority is in this school, right? And a lot of times, being here in Georgia, it's the white kids that are the minority in these black schools. Like, who's really looking out for them? I wonder, right? Because you might have, your occasional white teacher who might, but I don't know because it's not out in the open. But I know that this white child is going to leave my environment and go off and be what they want to be, but they're going to remember my impact if I had one. And so for them to be around a majority black environment, what must they be thinking or going to on a daily basis at 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old? Do they think they're black? Right? Do they go through looking at themselves the way their peers do? And at what point does somebody point to them, like say, hey, you're not that? What's my role in all of that, right? So I always wonder about that. I had one student when I taught third grade, and she was Filipino, and she didn't know she was Filipino. She thought she was black, and that's what she told me. And I looked on the globe, and I was like, where's your family from? And she couldn't point to the Philippines for me. And that's where I developed a passion for just looking out for the minority wherever I was. I'll look out for the majority, too, because y'all look like me.
Right.
But somebody has to be responsible to look out for the people that everybody's forgetting about. So they always have a sore spot for me wherever I am, and it's always where I go. It's always the young white kids.
So Stephen, you are, and I'm the same way. That's why I can identify. You are somebody who naturally look out for the little guy, for the little,
Yes,
for the little. But you also prove something else in saying what you said, and I say this on every single platform on the Black Man's Roundtable franchise now, and that is race is a made up construct. You just proved it. It is a straight made up concept, and so those kids don't know. It's like I guess I'm black. I guess I'm white. I guess I'm Filipino. They don't know. It's made up. So, but those two things is I think that that's in revealing what you revealed. You've definitely let the audience know that you are someone that looks out for the little man or the little guy or the little student or whatever you want to call it. And you've also reiterated something I always say, which is that race is a made up construct. Cemond, you want to add anything on that one?
No, I think that's. I mean, he threw a whole different perspective. That's a good, different perspective. But I do just want to. I think I said it earlier, and I think on the flip side, a lot of times I think we talk about the need for more black males in leadership roles. I think as brothers, we need more time like this, and brothers who put more action behind just words. Because a lot of times, I think sometimes as black males, we may get to a place where we're speaking just honestly and transparent with the conversation. I know what kind of motivated me or built my leadership path or a heart to mentor is because you would get into a school and sometimes brothers feel like I got mine, I'm not going to really help you, or maybe their own insecurities about what they have and not really want to embrace. But I think to capture that, we have to be secure in our roles to give back. Because somebody, to me, unless you always ought to me, a good leader should have a replacement. So you should be grooming that individual, and not hazing them. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So yeah, right.
Exactly.
Right. Like, because when I get here, it's not they owe me. As a leader, I owe more. Leadership is service.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was one of the things that was a reality check for me. When I retired from the military, is that people looked at me out in the civilian world like, you are setting this person up for success. Your successor.
Right.
In the military, you're required to do that.
Leadership.
You're required to set. In fact, if your predecessor fails, you fail. Even though you moved on, that follows you. So that's what I knew, and so it was just strange to me. But I'm glad you said that. Two more topics, gentlemen. We are an hour in, but I gotta hit these two last ones, and that is. I want black men to hear it directly from us, and that is the father's impact. The fathers, the guys out there, the non-educators, just the fathers of students, the father's impact on educational settings.
I could jump in on this one because I can speak personally. My father was a huge impact on me. My father's a graduate of Morehouse College right here in Atlanta, grew up in Atlanta. Unbeknownst, a lot of people don't know, my father went to med school. And probably he was in the late 60s. And that's a whole nother story about, you can understand, he said I was like one minority males. You talk about the 60s in med school in Emory. He just talked about some of the challenges he faced going through that. But my father led the way with that, going to Morehouse and always walking with humility, but always telling me, find your path. But he didn't just talk about education. He led it, and also just going to college. He made sure he worked 2 jobs. And I always had the vision, like, you go to school and I want you to come out without the debt. So he committed to that, and always led with that heart to believe that education is the pathway, the cornerstone to be whatever you can be. So I think that has really been deposited into me. So I'm thankful for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But while Dr. Little's getting his stuff together, while Dr. Little's getting his stuff together, I guess Dr. Little got that. Dr. Little, you got that light. You got that motion light. You're trying to do all that. But no, go ahead, Dr. Little. Jump in there. I was going to jump in, but I'll jump in last.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I appreciate that right there. That
You're
was
welcome.
good.
Oh, you're
And
welcome.
that speaks to how I feel about this.
Mm-hmm.
The word that comes to mind is presence, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just by being present, you automatically counter that myth that we're not present, right? Somewhere along the line, somebody got all of us to believe wholesale, even those of us with fathers, that black fathers aren't there.
Right.
They've
Right.
always been there.
Always.
Always. They may not have supported the way you wanted or anything like that, but they've always
Yeah.
been there,
Right.
right?
Right.
And we got to realize that. So you telling that and digging back and pulling out that story, that's inspiring. And every
Thank
day
you.
I see fathers at school, I let them know if I can. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for walking your child to the door. Hey, it's good to see you today. Hey, I love you, man. And I want the kids to hear that.
Yeah.
When they're in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, it's probably inconsequential. But as they get older and they look back, they're going to say, oh, wow, my black administrator was standing at the door when my black dad walked me to the door.
Mm.
And then he went up and gave my dad a hug. That myth slowly goes away. And when people start to lie to them and tell them, oh, man, daddy ain't here, your daddy ain't this, your daddy ain't that. No, I saw it with my own eyes.
Yep.
So we can, that's the father's impact, is just being there to balance that story out, that narrative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
Great
sir.
point. Great point.
Great point. And just to add to that, I think, in America, the black father may not always, be a part of, this American nuclear family, as they like to, call it, or
Yeah.
whatever. But there's been so many studies that have shown that of all of this made up construct of race, right? Of all the different groups of men in America, that no other man, no other father spend the quality time with his children than the African American father.
Mm-hmm.
Period. It's been shown time and time. And what I always ask people to do, now again, I know Metro Atlanta is a little bit different from any place else in the United States. No doubt about it. I've been all over the United States and it's quite different. Metro Atlanta is quite different from anywhere in the world, honestly. That I've been to. But as far as the impact of African Americans. But what I will say is that when I tell people about these studies and stuff of black fathers and their impact and as far as quality time with their children, I tell them, hey, I know we're in Metro Atlanta, but just go to any city or county park. Any city or county park, and you look at the men who are there. And you look at the men who are there with their children and grandchildren. Okay? Those men look like the three of us on this panel. Mm-hmm. Just about every single, and I challenge them, go do it if you think I'm like, go and do it. But also, what I want to say is that people ask me what was my biggest memory, in my years of education. What stood out? What's the thing that one of the things that I'll never forget? And I think I talked about this last time, Dr. Robinzine, on this when we did the show last year, and that is when most of my career I taught in Atlanta public schools, the Southwest, part of it of Atlanta. So very challenging as far as Title I, as far as very challenged with financially in those areas. But one thing I tell people that I would never ever forget, and I've been black all my life, and one thing that I would never forget, and that is how in this almost 100% black school, as far as the teachers and pretty much all black Hispanic school, is you would see these young black men, pants, just sagging all the way to the back of their knees or whatever, right? And to watch these, and of course I volunteered for bus duty and afternoon bus duty and in fact enlisted the help of all 13, which was a big number for black men in an elementary school. That's a pretty big number. We had 13 black men, wow. Teachers and 2, black paraprofessionals. And we did the bus duty for the afternoon. We wanted the community to know that there are black men in this building. You come on in here if you want to, but there are black men in this building, and we are teaching and we are protecting this school. But to watch those young black men come and pick up their children and to watch them drop to one knee and ask them how their day was, and to see how gentle they were, someone with that someone else would look to as a thug or whatever you want to call them. I watch that every single day, and almost every single day, I would almost get emotional just watching that, just watching these guys with their pants sagging. All of a sudden, they see their children. They are different people. I don't know what they were walking, because it was usually walking. I don't know what they were walking to that building, but for those 180 days, watching those young gentlemen, that is what I'll never forget. And like I said, I've been black all my life, but at the same time, I gotta say that I was impressed by that. So I feel y'all on that. I just had to tell that story, Stephen. Like you said, right? These conversations, man, they bring out the emotion, in us, even whether we are doing it remotely or whether we are doing these things in person, right. Because they actually bring that out in us. So, yeah. So the last topic I want to talk about is, I want you guys to talk about is the future. The future. Now, I know that's kind of a loaded kind of topic to talk about, because, like we said, we don't even know what's going on in the Department of Education, right? We don't know we know how much that will affect the students that look like us when we were students, right? It will have the detrimental effect on them at the something we're not really talking about, but at the the college levels as well, right? So. But from what you know, and from everything that you've collected, everything that you've seen, how do you see the future of education, specifically, as black men in education? I'm talking about other black men who are teachers, who are administrators, but also students, in education. And what advice do you have to give in any of those? I know it's a lot, but what advice do you have to give any of parents, people who are listening to this and who are interested in becoming educators, and those educators who are thinking about, career changes or whatever? Dr. Littles, we will start with you first, because I've seen Dr. Robinzine on this subject, and he has a lot to say. And look, and Stephen, I know you may as well too, but I want to save Robinzine for last on this one.
Well, I'll be short and sweet with this one. Thank you for the heads up. The one thing that I've learned is that, the only thing that's really constant in this whole education realm is change. Right? Mm-hmm. And even though this change is going to be perpetual, just know that your job, your duty is to serve. Right? You all are going to be going through this change together. You're going to be the one ushering it. They're going to be the recipients of it. So you got to find a way to marry the two, make them work. And with that, once you start to figure certain things out, it doesn't matter what change comes, right? And I think I said this to you before, Mr. Rodney. If you don't repeat the actions of your own success, you won't be successful.
That's right.
If you keep your focus on your legacy, you just build it action after action after action after action. And when you look back one day, you're proud of the road you left. So that's where I am with it.
Keep your focus on your legacy. That should be on a T-shirt. Dr. Robinson.
Yes, sir. I won't be too long, but this kind of just.
I don't want you be as long as you want.
Okay.
I just know that from your look, you're a district leader. You're at the district level, so I just know you have a lot to say to folks. Now you can be as short as you want or as long as you want.
Okay.
I just know that I know what you can be, so I'm like, you need to go last. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and as you were speaking of that, I was just thinking about the future, because I'm in the twilight of my career. So I probably could leave in a year, 2 years. And I was just thinking, like, what do you, like, for parents, I just keep bringing home, and, if John was on here, he'd be so happy. We have to express to our kids in our community the importance of reading.
Yes.
We in the simplest forms, try to give parents things that they can take. Sit down with your kid, let them. If it doesn't matter what the interest is, just put it in front of them. We were so much better off because that really levels the playing field for kids. I just got on the phone with one of my buddies before the call, and that anything about this education in the future, we got to build better relationships. I think better relationships with our kids, better relationships from the district to the school. I think that and communicate better. I think when we get those things in order, we can make it better because we don't know what the future holds. We know working in this social media age, and I don't even think it's probably a whole other topic idea. School safety. I mean, it's so many moving parts right now in the school, but I think just making sure that our kids get the best opportunity, put a book in their hands, just build relationships with the school and the community, and we need just the partnerships. But I think those relationships that have eroded over time, like you just spoke about, the father coming in, embracing the faculty getting out together, those things have eroded. So we just get back to some of that. I know it may sound kind of old school, but relationships matter.
Old school.
Old
school is the key word. You know what?
Yeah.
We need to do a lot of things old school again.
Yeah.
Because guess what? They're going old school.
Yeah.
Right? People want to roll back education to the 1950s and the 1960s, and so guess what? Those same tactics and those same strategies that our forefathers and foremothers utilized in order to get us where we are today, with education and so many other things, is we need to maybe, since, hey, look, they go back, we go back, right? It worked. It worked. We got a whole 1964 civil rights bill out of it, right? So maybe we need to start doing the old school stuff, Dr. Robinzine. So I think of everything you said, the watchword that I got out of that, brother, is old school. So don't apologize for it. We probably need to go back to using some of those, tactics and strategies. Gentlemen, it's been wonderful. And like I said, the education series is one of my favorite series of all the 6 or 7 series that this platform does. They are usually eagerly awaited. They are usually well received and well watched. And I know this episode will be as well. And like I said, the goal is to get end of year report. We did it in the beginning. This is our progress report, and hopefully it'll be 4 of us on here to give the end of year report, and then Dr. Littles, like you talked about, my goal is to get the next level up, but also to get the classroom teacher, which is much harder. Believe it or not, it's so many of them, but it's much harder, and I understand why. I understand why it can be a little bit hard to get them, but and also to get a board member on, right? And so from that perspective, as well, and my goal is to try to get a board member who is not who doesn't have a background in education, so and that kind of thing, to give it the flavor that I think I want to have for that episode. But definitely you guys are where the rubber really meets the road. The administrators, and like Dr. Robinzine said, the principal. There's a reason, why it is called principal. I don't care if you put it PALPEPLE or whatever. It is still a reason that they are called the principal. So, with that, gentlemen, I thank you. I thank you for your candidness. I thank you for agreeing to this, and I definitely look forward to having you guys back on for the end of year. I gotta squeeze it in. I have to squeeze this in. So, be looking forward to that. And with that, any parting words that you guys want to say before we close out this episode? We'll start with you, Dr. Littles. Any parting words you want to say to the audience?
Work on your legacy.
Work on your legacy.
Work on that legacy.
Dr. Robinson.
Yeah. Well, just thank you. I've enjoyed it. Nice meeting you, Stephen. And I I think we just keep pushing forward, you know, and just stay flexible because we don't know what the future holds. So, yeah.
Again, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate everything, having you back on. And with that family, you can catch the Black Man's Roundtable the third Thursday of the month. Also catch the Black Man's Roundtable with Rodney and Rodney the second of the month, and the Black Man's Roundtable Local Lookout with Rodney and Bobby the first Thursday of the month. All episodes drop at 7 p.m. Until next time, we'll see you in them suites and them streets. Don't forget to check us out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have show ideas or want to be on the show? Shoot us an email at blackmansroundtable@gmail.com. And please follow us on Facebook.
1,